Hurricane warnings are out for the Texas coast as Beryl strengthens and heads for landfall. Good evening, I'm Mike Naso with the Saturday night update. The latest 11 p.m. advisory on Tropical Storm Beryl sitting there in the western Gulf of Mexico, starting to get a little bit more organized, and we should see it become a hurricane again before it makes landfall along the Texas coastline. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Beryl as of 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. Beryl was at 24.7 north, 94.0 west. The maximum sustained winds are still around 60 miles per hour, but the pressure's been dropping down towards, say, 993 millibars. So it has been dropping with a barometric pressure, but the winds have not yet responded, but they will. The motion is still northwest at 13 miles per hour, and we're expecting that to continue the next 24 to 36 hours around the western periphery of the ridge to the north of high pressure, and that's going to push the hurricane right into the coastline of Texas sometime overnight Sunday, Monday morning. Now, we do have a hurricane warning in effect all the way from Baffin Bay up to Sargent, Texas, and then from Sargent, Texas to St. Louis Pass, we have a hurricane watch, and then down from Baffin Bay to the mouth of the Rio Grande, we have a hurricane watch as well. So again, pretty much all of the Texas coastline here is under a hurricane watch with the hurricane warning area right there along the mid-Texas coast. You guys are most in the line of fire from a direct landfall of what will be a potent Category 1 hurricane at least. Now here's the infrared satellite, and again, the center of the hurricane, let's look at where did it say, 24.7, 94.0, so 24.7, 94.0, so 94.0 would be here, 24.7, right about in there where I drew that circle is the center. However, as it restructures itself, the center will become a little less tilted, and it'll be able to build upwards in the atmosphere and strengthen. Now, the one thing Beryl has always been is tenacious. We saw that in the Caribbean. Again, this was a one-time Category 5 hurricane, and to see it like this, you think, oh, good news, it's over. However, we should know that Beryl has a tendency to come back, and we think because of the small size, that once it does organize again around the center, it might be able to start strengthening a little more quickly than we want to see. Now, upper level winds, it's still dealing with some wind shear, some undercutting here, but overall it's going to get in a much better environment throughout the day on Sunday and into Monday, and that will allow it to become a hurricane before it makes landfall, we think. Now, the water vapor imagery, I wanted to show you this to show you, look at all this dry air that we are dealing with here, this hook of dry air, especially off towards the south and west of the center of Beryl in here. It is, still July. It's still early in the hurricane season, so we're not dealing with an ideal environment. However, once this does get cranking, it looks like it will be in a little more favorable environment right up towards the Texas coast, which is why we could see strengthening into a hurricane right before landfall. Rainfall is going to be a problem. Again, 8 to 12 inches of rain anywhere here between Corpus and Houston, but again, that's going to be gradually getting smaller and decreasing as the system pools to the northeast. Nevertheless, all the way up there into Little Rock, you guys are going to get in on the wet weather as the time goes by. As the system pools inland, the winds will weaken, but you're still going to have a tropical cyclone entity with rainfall, and that could cause quite a flood risk here. Moderate flood risk along the mid-Texas coast all the way inland just to the east of Waco. You guys in low-lying areas near rivers and streams, watch out just in case you get some flooding from Beryl. Storm surge could be a problem. If the hurricane makes landfall over Matagorda Bay and you're on the right front quadrant, you're going to have water rises at least 4 to 6 feet, potentially higher with waves crashing on top of that. And then over in Galveston Bay, 3 to 5 feet near High Island, 2 to 4. Again, water rises all along the coast from the border to Cameron, Louisiana. So again, not a good time to be in the water. I would stay away. Rip currents could be a problem. High surf and dangerous swells. But again, it looks like the highest risk would be from Padre Island all the way to High Island. That's the highest risk right now for storm surge, especially near and to the right of the center of the tropical cyclone as it makes landfall. The key messages from the National Hurricane Center for Tropical Storm Beryl. This is as of 10 p.m. Central Time, Saturday night. Number one, there is a danger of life-threatening storm surge inundation late Sunday and Monday along the coast of Texas, as I mentioned, from the Padre Island National Seashore all the way over to High Island. That includes Corpus Christi Bay, Matagorda Bay, and Galveston Bay. And anybody in those areas needs to follow advice given by your local officials and follow any evacuation orders. If you're in an evacuation zone and they tell you to get out, it's probably best to do so. Number two, Beryl is forecast to bring damaging hurricane force winds to areas of the lower and mid Texas coastline late Sunday night into Monday. As I mentioned, we have a hurricane warning in effect from Baffin Bay to Sargent, Texas. All preparations should be rushed to completion before the tropical storm force winds arrive, which should begin late tomorrow, Sunday night. So again, you still have time by watching this update Saturday night, but not too much time. Number three, as I mentioned, the flash and urban flooding, which may be locally considerable, is likely across the Texas Gulf Coast and eastern Texas late Sunday through the middle of next week. River flooding also possible. And finally, again, rip currents will cause life-threatening beach conditions through Monday across much of the Gulf Coast, and beachgoers should heed warning flags and the advice of lifeguards before venturing into the water. Again, those waves propagate, those swells propagate away from the center of storms in the Gulf. Now, as of the 11 p.m. Saturday night advisory, the Hurricane Center has the system inland on Monday morning, right in the area of Matagorda Bay, Port O'Connor, Port Lavaca in here, Magnolia Beach. However, again, as I mentioned, the right side is where you'll have the onshore flow, and the water rise will be the greatest. So Matagorda Bay, you guys really need to watch it. Any low-lying areas here near Port O'Connor and down towards Matagorda Island, you could be ground zero for this system as it pulls in. And again, we're just not sure how strong it's going to be, but some of the computer models show it cranking up to a high-end Category 1 hurricane. There's always a chance it could become a Category 2. So Hurricane Claudette was 90 miles an hour over Port O'Connor, Texas in July 2003. And I remember tracking that thing as it moved right in. And there were some really bad wind gusts and some really bad wind damage. So even if it's just not, you might think, 90 miles per hour. Yeah, that's not the Category 4 it was in the Windward Islands or south of Jamaica, but still quite a nasty hurricane and quite nasty for early July. There's the radar. Again, we're seeing the banding offshore. There's some rain near San Antonio, some thunderstorms. But again, this will get progressively worse as the storm gets closer on Sunday night and then overnight tomorrow night into Monday morning, when we will see landfall somewhere here along the mid-Texas coastline. So again, everybody needs to be ready for Beryl. We've been watching this system as it moved through the Caribbean, through the Windward Islands, impacted Jamaica, the Yucatan, now headed for Texas. I'll be back with more coverage on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.